minutes, and he got up to like act like he was gonna go refill his coffee, and like drops his coffee cup, pulls a knife out of his pocket, comes over there, sticks it in my throat, and just goes to town. I come get pulled off the field by police, put me in handcuffs because I was a runaway. Because my entire life I've seen what the absence of God looks like, in my opinion, right? Even though God was there, he wasn't in the people that I was around. You have to understand that he's not making you miss out on moments. He's making you miss out on regrets.
Welcome to Able to Overcome, the podcast where we sit down with individuals who have faced and overcame life's toughest challenges. Whether it's overcoming personal hardships, loss, or adversity, our guests share their powerful stories of resilience and the tangible ways they were able to overcome. If you're in the midst of the trial of your own, this podcast is here to remind you that you're not alone. And by learning to look to the great cloud of witnesses that surround us, we too can learn how we are able to overcome. So let's hop in together. All right, my band, Zach, in the house. What's happening, brother?
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Number one guest on the Able to Overcome podcast. How's it feel?
I mean, as per usual. No, I'm just kidding. It feels great. Thanks
That's
for
amazing.
having me.
Yeah, so the point of the podcast is sharing our stories, sharing our testimonies. The reality is not all of us have cookie-cutter lives. A lot of us have experienced some crap, some stuff. And the only way we can truly grow and overcome the things that have faced us in our life is sharing and having community and bouncing our stories off each other. And so that's why we're here today, right? So today you are here, children's pastor at Temple Baptist.
Yep, that's true. It's a little early, but
first time.
When it's released, it'll be fine.
Yeah. First time being able to announce that's pretty cool, right?
It is cool, man. It's a real feeling.
But you did not go to school for ministry. You just came out being a machinist.
Yep.
But your story isn't growing up in church, having a family where you come home and dinner's prepared, you play some board games, and, your parents tuck you in at night and you go to sleep.
No. I mean, I feel like for most people in the South, especially in Alabama or Mississippi, where we're currently at, I feel like almost everyone has a moment when they're young that they go to church, right? Yeah. Whether they get saved then or they end up getting saved later or they don't get saved at all. But like, I cannot remember stepping in a church building before the age of like probably 10, as far as my memory serves. Yeah. Of course, there's stuff that's probably missing there, but yeah, well, that's just my own personal testimony. Yeah. Maybe different, but
let's dive into it, man. So let's take us on the story of Zach's life from I guess childhood to giving your life to the Lord to now being children's pastor. Man, walk us through it so we can learn something.
So I was 2 when my parents divorced. Of course, don't remember much of that. My brother remembers a lot more than that than I do. He's a couple years older than I am. I've got 4 total siblings. 3 of them I don't know. They were from mom's prior marriage. I think when I was like 12, they were already having kids, so they're much older. So never.
How old was your mom when you were born?
My mom was. Let's see, she died. So she would have been. I guess around 32, 30, somewhere in there, probably.
Yeah.
Somewhere. But yeah, so mom was by the time I came along, which I was the baby, right? So by the time I came along, mom was an experienced, child maker for sure. But
she knew her way around it.
Yeah, she knew how to have children. That's for sure. Like I said, she had 5 total with me. So my older brother is like a year and a half older than me. He's my full brother. The other 3 are half. And then so at 2, mom and dad split, and we moved from Carbon Hill, Alabama to Hamilton. Just not all at one time. Just we went from one place to the next. We had stepdads in between, and I think mom. I know for a fact for myself anyway. My mom was the only person I've ever met that got arrested for bigamy charges. I don't know if you know what that is.
No, I do not.
It's where you're legally married to more than one person. So. Yeah, mom knew how to pick them. Apparently she picked multiple, which is against the law.
Buffet.
Yeah, so mom was thrown in prison, or not prison, jail for that, of course. And then I'm sure there's legalities, all that. I don't know what all of it is, of course, but because I was like 6 when all that went down.
So you moved to Hamilton at 6?
No, I moved to Hamilton. That was the last stop.
Okay.
So from 2 to 8 is we moved from Carbon Hill. We moved in with a stepdad, and then we moved into Section 8 apartments. And I think we were back and forth there a couple times. I'm not super remembering on that one. But then we moved to a little town called Winfield with another stepdad, and his house burnt, and I don't really know the whole story there. I don't know a whole lot about it, but and then I remember he was a great guy. His guy's name was Craig. Super best stepdad we had for sure by like the farthest margin.
Oh, Craig.
Yeah.
You say the house burnt while y'all were in it, or?
So I wasn't actually inside the house. I
Yeah.
can't remember if I was at school or I remember showing up and the house was burnt. So
Yeah.
whatever kind of, trauma
Wow.
kind of does funny things. Like you remember bits and pieces. If you got a lot of trauma, you just kind of, you remember the high points,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
and then, through that time, so we moved from Winfield. I can't remember where exactly we moved to after that, but then the next move that I remember was to Hamilton, and it was Section 8 apartments again. Mom worked. We lived right up the road from a Pizza Hut. That's where Mom worked, so we'd ride roller skates down the hill and go get free pizza. Don't know if Pizza Hut's cool with that, but I appreciate you. You fed me a lot in my childhood.
So
And-
moving that many times, how many schools did you transfer to?
So we went to Carbon Hill. I know we went to Carbon Hill for kindergarten, and I think I want to say for part of first grade at least.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if we ever went to school at like Winfield. Like I can't remember that at all.
Yeah.
As far as actually going to school there. If we did, it was super short lived. And then in Hamilton, we may have went to Hamilton school. I don't know. I really don't know.
So there could have been a portion of like
Yeah, just not in school.
not in
Could
school.
100% have happened. Yeah. So that would be a better question for my brother actually. But yeah, I know that. So at 8, Mom got arrested for public intox at the apartments we were living in. We went and stayed with one of the neighbors one night, and our aunt and uncle came and got us the next day. So at 8, which I guess would be 3rd grade, or the summer between 2nd and 3rd grade is actually when it happened. But so in my 3rd grade year, when we moved to Jasper, or back to Jasper, because we kind of lived there for a short time when I was like a baby, but I don't remember any of that. So
Yeah.
But
Walker County. Let's go.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The boys.
The boys.
But when we moved back to Jasper at 8, we moved in with my aunt and uncle, and we went to Valley Junior High. The rest of the time I was in elementary, of course, and then. But when my 3rd grade year started, I was actually in like learning disability classes because they thought that I was like. My mom had actually convinced me that I had a brain glitch. This is not an exaggeration. She told me that. I went with it.
What is it?
I don't
What is
know.
a brain glitch?
I
Is
don't
that
know,
just
no. That's just
you're
Mom-
thinking and then you're not
I want you to know, Mom
glitched out?
Mom was a little weird. Mom,
Yeah.
needless to
Like,
say,
honey,
Mom,
you're not dumb. You just got the glitch, man.
yeah, no,
you got the glitch.
you just forget a little bit and then it like restarts.
I know several people with the glitch.
Yeah, me too, dog. Me too. To this day, still got it. I ain't
Never-
lost it.
Never got the software update.
But yeah, so I started in 3rd grade in like the special ed class.
You moved out of you were taken basically from your mom's house. You're living with your aunt and uncle. Take us from there.
Yeah, so first summer was good, and of course, like when you're living in like a drug addict's house and you're seeing like one of the few memories I have with my dad like comes from that time because my dad was never really around. Like I remember sitting in an apartment. I can't remember which apartment it was, but I remember sitting in an apartment kitchen, and all the Section 8 house and apartments are pretty much built the same. I don't know if you've ever been in one or not, but
Yeah.
they're real similar. But we had a glass table. I remember Dad having it was a roll of coins. I don't know what size coins, but he was crushing a pill on the glass table, and like I looked up and like could see through the glass table and see the pill like crush. So,
You were
like,
underneath it.
yeah, I was under the table like just
Yeah.
chilling, being a kid, Like I looked up, and I was like, "What are you doing?" Whatever. But yeah, that's one of like the very like faint memories I have of my dad, like one of the first ones. But yeah,
How old were you then?
probably between the ages of like 4 and 8, somewhere in
Yeah.
there. I mean, I can't remember. Like the
Yeah.
timeline with
No,
a
I
lot of
feel
that
ya.
stuff is super skewed because I'm like, I know I wasn't young enough to like still be a toddler type kid, but I wasn't. I don't know if I was old enough to be in school or not. So but yeah, which mom and dad were like fire and gasoline. Like they were the worst possible couple you could ever combine together.
Yeah.
Like mom was
Sounds good.
bipolar, dad was like a drug addict, and mom was a drug addict. So like a bipolar drug addict and another drug addict. It's just like
Ups and downs.
yeah, a lot of downs,
Lots of
lots of downs.
All right. So
But at 8, we started doing like recreational sports. Moved to my aunt and uncle, and I mean everything was good for probably, I don't know. For me, it was definitely a couple of years, but my brother dealt with that a lot differently than I did, because my brother basically took care of me, right? So like when mom wasn't wasn't able to cook, my brother would cook,
Yeah.
right? So like my brother almost felt as like a parental role, so he fought with my aunt and uncle quite frequently over like what he thought was good for me versus what wasn't, right? So, which that was him being the person, the protector,
and is he like 11, 12 or?
Oh no, he at that point he would be 10 at the oldest. So like,
So a 10-year-old is.
yeah. Well, like I remember him cooking like grilled cheeses for us in like the Section 8 apartments, like, and I was young, like no older than 6, so he
Yeah.
was 8 at the max. But yeah, so brother, when he moved in, it was a very different. I can't describe how he feels about it because that's his story. Of course, that's his testimony. But he struggled with my aunt and uncle a lot because I feel like he wanted to still protect me from a lot of things. So, but I mean, I was a pretty good kid to be honest. Like, not trying to brag on myself, even though I'm like the greatest. But no, but I listened. Went to school, made good grades, the whole thing. Like I said, everything was good for a couple of years, and then I don't really know exactly what happened. But I guess essentially like reality sets in at some point, and like you realize what's going on around you. So where I lived at then, they didn't do a lot of drugs, but they sold a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
So, and not anything crazy hard, mostly just pot, stuff like that. But yeah, so like at 10, I knew something was different about our family than like the traditional family, I guess, other than being, fostered, right? Like obviously that's a little different, but I was like, there's something weird. Like we don't have like friends over very often. And like when we do, it's
Why do we have so many visitors that come by for
Right.
2 minutes and leave?
well, like they didn't do a lot of that there,
yeah.
but like they would do like it was the weirdest thing because like my Uncle Don didn't work,
Yeah.
but he was gone.
Like,
all
why
day.
do we have food? This
Yeah,
dude
like-
don't work.
but like he doesn't pay. Like I know he doesn't. Like he works, but like
Yeah.
he doesn't have any tools, so he's not a carpenter. Like he doesn't. Like there were just a lot of things that were kind of.
It was
missing.
not coming together.
Yeah, and I was like, it's whatever, dog. Like this
Yeah.
is way better than we had it, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's not in a Section 8 apartment. Getting jumped by people, not having to deal with all the moving around and swapping schools. So I was just like, this is. I'm cool, man. Whatever. I mean, I wasn't gonna dig too far into it. Not my show.
Yeah.
So. And then I guess the thing that kind of gave away. So my uncle would always tell us stories of the things that he did that he never wanted us to do. Right. So my uncle was a 2-time murderer felon. He'd been in prison for I don't know the exact number of years, but he said over 15 for 2 separate counts of murder, and then he could never get a like a decent paying job. I mean,
Due to his background.
yeah. So they did what they had to do, right? And that was his excuse for it. The entire, once we found out when we were later on in our years, like I think I found out when I was 14 or so, like that's what they did. I was like, oh. I mean, that makes sense now because, like, I'm wondering how we're going on these Disney vacations and, like, Aunt don't work. You can't get a real job.
Yeah.
But,
What's up to that? It's not- You know what's crazy to me is the fact that your uncle had murdered 2 people, served 15 years, yet still had the heart to take y'all in and take care of you.
oh, yeah.
You usually think murderer as just like they're completely evil, but something good had to been there for your uncle.
So my uncle, my uncle was very violent as far as like when he got upset, it was like immediately ready to like throw down in the living room.
Yeah.
Whether you was a kid or not. Like just how he was. But he loved all of us. Like I feel like with a lot of that anger stuff, the reason you get so mad at things a lot of times is because you do care.
Yeah.
And when you stop caring, you don't have that emotion anymore. So the problem was that he cared a lot about a lot of different things. So I don't know, it's probably 12-ish years old or so. And I guess for like an example, like so my brother always had to get the last word.
Yeah.
And he was like he was like that forever. He's not like that anymore. He's a great dude. Love that guy. But he's him and my uncle went always just yeah in between each other about something. Well, I guess my uncle had enough of it that day, and he grabs the ceramic coffee or the ceramic ashtray off the table, straight across the table, hits him in the forearm, slices his forearm open. Like he's like, you know, at the oldest he could possibly be was like 15.
Yeah.
But like, so like he loved us, but like
he also had a very tough
mean
side.
streak. Yeah, that mean streak was deep. I mean, again, you don't kill two people and not have a mean streak.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just reality. I mean, he served in like an actual prison, not like, you know, the local jail. Like he was up in like the Chicago State Penitentiary.
Wow.
So like back when it wasn't like, you know, you had TVs in every room. Like this was like it was prior 1989. I don't know what year exactly, but
so at what point when you moved in did you start seeing the violence and that become a normal thing?
So you got to understand how trauma works too. Trauma programs you to like reason things out that are not reasonable. So like the violence was probably there earlier on. I just didn't see a lot of it. Like because my brain was just like, "Oh, this is still better than what we were doing."
Yeah.
You know, cuz like a lot of it at first wasn't happening to me. Like and then that particular moment with the ashtray, like that is the moment that I like it kind of woke me up and I was like, other people's houses don't throw ashtrays at their children, you know? Like, I have friends now that are like normal, and like this doesn't happen there. Yeah, so it was probably earlier on. It was probably from, you know, probably from the time I moved in, really. But like I couldn't see it, you know, like as far because like kind of like greener pastures things, right? Like when you first go out to a greener pasture, like oh the pasture's great, and then you eat all the grass, and you're like, oh
yeah.
There's other things. There's like a fence around here, you know, like you notice other things, right? So like, I guess it was probably as early as we came in towards someone, but like for me, I didn't really have a whole lot of physical stuff happen to me until my teenage years. So, but my brother was early on. Like, I know we went camping one time. Like my Uncle Don got super mad at him for, I don't know, I think he called my aunt the bad word or whatever.
Yeah.
Like he like went and like jumped on his tent thinking he was in there. Just like belly flopped on his tent. I was like, oh. I mean, whatever.
Your brother's a Houdini.
Right. Yeah. My brother, I don't even know where he went.
It's like,
I think
I'm not coming out for a couple days.
I think he went in the woods. I ain't even gonna lie to you. I don't know where he went.
That was a bold move by the uncle.
Oh,
camping,
yeah,
just an open knife blade. You know what? The best way to get this kid jumping on the top of the tent.
Yeah. Like the thing is like I look at it now, and I'm like, that's pretty outlandish. But like
It's
then
pretty crazy.
But like then when you're in it, right? You're like, I mean, this ain't that bad, you know.
So,
I mean, he shouldn't have called her that word, you know. I mean, maybe it's a little too far by the unk, but you know, I mean, shouldn't say that, right? But I guess the most consistent thing that like we all noticed as kids was my aunt drank a lot. So like the whole time we were going through all this, like there wasn't like my aunt was present, right? Like she was physically there, but like man, I don't think I can recall like after like 11 or 12 years old, like I can't recall a moment where she didn't
have a drink
of some sort. And like,
is this your mother's sister?
No, this is my dad's brother's wife.
Okay.
So, and she's from Chicago too, and she grew up rough too. So like, you know, she's a victim of her own circumstance, right? Yeah. So, which I'm not going to divulge into any of that. That would be her own story to tell. But anyway, so and she, all the time, always drank, and like it was one of those things that like she would hide it from my uncle. Like he would think she's had like 3 or 4 beers over the course of the whole day, and like really she's just like got a case like stashed somewhere in the house that she's going to and like putting more in the fridge, so like the 6-pack or 12-pack or whatever didn't look emptier. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, so like there was some like, and he wasn't home all day. Like he was gone. Like that man was working. I don't know what he was doing out there. But,
still confused.
But yeah, still, I mean,
so
I know what it entailed, but
yeah. So at what point did you start experiencing? You said into your teen years and.
Yeah. So, back in the day, I called it favoritism, right? So like my cousins would not get in trouble as much as me and my brothers did by my aunt, and that started causing a lot of friction. And again, like whenever I was asked to do something, I did it, whatever it was. If I was grounded, I didn't question it. I just went. Like, so our grounding, by the way, was like I sat at the kitchen table in a wooden chair and read a book or whatever. But like, there was no going to your room. There was no going to stand in the corner. It was like, you sit at this table from the time you come home till the time you go to sleep. Like, and like, granted, that's not like a terrible punishment. But,
it's a lot for a kid.
Yeah. I mean, when you're like 12, 7 hours at the table. And then in the summertime, it was the whole day. Jeez. Like, from the time you woke up and came out of your bed, well, she was coming to get you at 8:30 to the time you went to sleep that night. You was at the table unless you had to go to the bathroom. That was it. Bathroom, like, shower, potty, whatever. That's where you was. But I started getting frustrated probably when I was like 14 and started like talking back to my aunt. Because I didn't understand what I was doing that was so bad, right? Yeah. Like, I was like, what am I, like, why am I even in trouble? Like, and like, of course, by that point, I'd realized that she was a full-on alcoholic. And I'm like, you're just drunk and overreacting, right? And of course, that was,
never good.
I don't know if you ever told a drunk person that they're overreacting and called them drunk, but like, that's the worst way to go about telling them that they're
well, especially a woman that's already hiding their insecurities.
Yeah.
Like, she's like faking it. Like, she's not, like,
yeah.
She doesn't have the problem, hiding it. So to call that out.
Well, like, my aunt was also, like, a person, like, in the PTO over the school, like, the elementary school we went to. Like, yeah,
wow. She was a functioning alcoholic.
like, she was super high functioning. Like, she wasn't falling all over herself and, like, drooling or nothing like that. She was, like, she was buzzed, but, like, she knew full well what she was doing, I feel like, for the most part.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure there was moments where she didn't, but for the most part she did. But anyways... So I started noticing, like, what I considered then favoritism. I didn't realize that she just had a problem. Right now I do, but then I didn't. But I was like, man, like, I just don't understand why I'm getting in so bad of trouble for this. Like, I can look around and like my cousins are saying things, the same things I'm saying to her, no punishment, right? So then I start back talking to her, and of course it progresses, right? Never just starts in one moment for most people. Some people it does, but most people it doesn't. But so I was sitting there one day, and I walked in. I was like 15 at this time. And I walked in. This was the first time and only time that either of them put their hands on me personally, right? So I walk in from school. I was like, hey, Aunt Marge, can I play video games? We had like a 1-hour game time limit, which I still feel like is fair.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have your kids live, or my opinion, shouldn't be living on a video game, but to each their own. And she was like, yeah. So she was napping when I asked her, right? She was like napping on the couch. So I go to my room, chilling there, and like 15 minutes later, I hear her feet like in the kitchen. I was like, what's going on? Like, she was in a hurry. Yeah. And so the way the room was set up, the TV was in front of the door, right? So she like kicks the door in. Like, I'm sitting leaned up on the door. So of course it barely moves. She's a small woman, right? But she kicks the back of the door, and like, I'm like, what's up? Like, I'm trying to get up, right? So she kicks it a second time, of course, without saying anything. And like, I like fall out of the way, and I'm like, yep, what's up? Like, what's wrong? She's like, you're grounded? I was like, Aunt Marge, I just asked you if I could play video games. Like less than 5 minutes ago. Like, what changed? Well, like, I'm trying to turn it off, right? Because I'm like, whatever, it ain't worth the argument. Don't care that much. Like, I'm trying to turn my Xbox off. So behind my console, or like the entertainment system or whatever, we had one of them 6-prong plugs.
Yeah.
With like a bunch of expensive stuff for back in the day, like a big radio, DVD players, Xbox, TVs, all that stuff plugged into it. She just rips it out of the wall. I'm like, Aunt Mark, like, you're going to tear stuff up. Why are you doing that? She just turned around and backhands me immediately. I'm like, whoa.
Sums up.
She was like, you're grounded, blah, and, goes on a tear. And I'm like, all right, so I didn't do anything wrong, so I'm going to go across the neighbor's house.
Yeah.
Because they were cool, right? So neighbors are like friends with my aunt and uncles from Chicago. So, like, everybody thought, I was like, you're drunk, acting fool. I'm going across the road. I'm not dealing with this. So she tries to get in my way like 17 times. And I was like, look, I'm just going over there till Uncle Don gets back. We can all talk about it. But I ain't doing this.
So your demeanor, is it as calm as you're saying?
Oh,
or were
no.
You like,
I'm shook. Like, I'm not freaking out, yelling and screaming and jumping up and down. But, like, I'm trying to leave because I understand what's happening next.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I understand where this is going because this has already happened to...
You've seen it with your siblings.
Like, what's going to happen is that she's going to cause a bigger deal than what it is. And then she's going to tell... Before my uncle gets in the house, she's going to tell him her side. And he's going to walk in and he ain't going to listen to your side.
Yeah.
So what I'm hoping by getting across the road is that if I get across the road, maybe my Uncle Don will be calm enough on his walk over.
My man is strategic in anger.
You have to be. Yeah, like in that situation, you got to be. But like maybe if he's mad, that 45-second walk will give
calm
him
down.
Yeah, because we got a 45-second walk in there and a 45-second walk back before we're back in the house. He ain't gonna hit me in the front yard, right? So I'm like, be fine. Maybe he'll be calm enough to at least listen to me, right? So, blah blah blah. Long story short, I leave the house, but like I grab like a spend the night bag because I'm like, this woman's going crazy. Like, she's done threw herself in front of me, like, so I can't leave, and like I've already had to like try to ease beside her, and she's like, I'm telling your uncle that you pushed me, and I was like, okay, but like what, you were gonna tell him that anyway, so I leave the house, whatever. I'm chilling, walking down the road because I didn't go to the neighbor's house because I'm like, now I know how much trouble this is going to be, right? So I'm like, if I can just go get to my buddy Josh's house, spend the night, come back, after school tomorrow,
it'll all be good.
Maybe everybody will be calmed down. Well, none of that happened. I got picked up from some people that we went to church with like at least 2 years before that. And stayed the night with them, so they had no idea where I was. So I told them the story. I was like, hey, got popped in my lips, left because nothing good's coming next. And they were a lot closer to my brothers, the people that took me in that night. So like they were a lot closer to them, so they had known about some of the stuff because it had already happened to my brothers and them at that point. But so I go to the football game the next night, right? Go to school. We had a football game, playing football in 9th grade, 10th grade. And I'm chilling, right? I'm like, yeah, like I'll be at the football game, go home after, call my aunt, let her know I'm at school. Everything will be probably okay. Probably not, but, it'll be, there's no way it's going to get worse, right?
Yeah, it'll be the baseline of crazy that it usually is.
Like maybe we've all had time to calm down and think about it, right? So I'm chilling, and I come get pulled off the field by police, put me in handcuffs because I was a runaway. They called the police, issued a runaway, and told them...
They put you in handcuffs on the field?
Yeah. Like,
in front of your peers, front of your friends?
Yeah. So literally what happened is like it was in the middle of a play. I don't remember if I was in the play or on the sideline, but they weren't messing around at all, bro. Like, they came out and like straight up like to my chest, like slammed me. Like, I wasn't even looking at them. I had no idea they were coming. Police walked up, grabbed me by my shoulder pads, straight to the dirt. Yeah.
That's so dumb.
Yeah. Well,
that's so like what are you going to do? You're in the middle of a game. I'm trying to hit somebody else.
Well, like
not you.
The bad part is like, and again, I don't remember exactly what all went down as far as like timelines there, but I don't remember if I was in a play or not. So like, but either way, like I wasn't looking on the sidelines, like because again, I didn't start, so like I started on special teams. That was it. So like I'm paying attention to whenever special teams got to go. That's the only thing I'm paying attention for. But like that happens in a pretty quick concession, and when your football team's terrible. So whatever it was, I was waiting. So they hauled me to the police car and push me against the hood of it like I'm some like deranged criminal, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, I have no idea what's happening. Like, I have no idea why they're here, nothing. And they're like, well, you're a runaway, so we detained you so that I can't remember if they were going to take me back to Jasper or if whatever it was. Somebody was coming to do something, right? Well, the football coach calls my aunt, and it's like, hey, I'll make sure that he gets in your car. Just tell the police to let him go. So I wasn't there for that. Don't know any of the timeline on that. So I get to go back to the side of the field, and I'm just boo-hooing. Like, I'm terrified. Like, I've never been in trouble in my life, dude. Like, I'm like,
plus you're getting assaulted by police officers and out of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, like, again, like,
they're like, you didn't pass those tests in third grade.
That glitch, we about to reinstill it, dog. So end of the game comes, of course, bus ride home. Kind of vaguely remember that. Get in the car, and basically the only thing that was said was my aunt told me, she was like, your uncle's gonna talk to you in the morning. I was like, okay. So we ride home from Curry. We're chilling. Next day I get up. That was a Saturday morning. I was supposed to work Chick-fil-A that night. So, like,
you got to start adding these to the. I mean, dang, you working for the Lord's restaurant?
Oh yeah,
I don't even mention that.
Oh yeah, dude, I mean, well, you know.
No, you stay on it. Stay on it. So you wake up that morning.
I wake up that morning and I walk out in the living room and I sit down because like I already know how this is gonna go to some degree. I'm like, he's gonna want me to answer some type of stupid question, and I'm gonna get in trouble, right? Because again, this is the first time any of this has happened to me personally, but I've seen it, right? So come out there, he's like, you gonna tell me where you stayed last night? I was like, no. Why would I tell you that? He was like, so I can call the police and get them involved in this and get them arrested. I was like, why would you arrest someone that housed your child for a night because your drunk wife decided to slap me in my face and in my teeth? Like, also, just for reference, like, she was a small woman, but she has a handful of rings.
Yeah.
So, like,
it busted you up pretty good.
Well, like, I'm sure it busted my lip, and my nose bleeds like super easy. So I'm sure I looked like a Hollywood Halloween special effects kit coming out of my house. But I was like, she is the reason for all of this. He's like, you got 5 minutes. Tell me where you stayed. I was like, okay.
Just sit there for that 5
minutes.
Yep,
we sat there watching the news for 5 minutes, and he got up to like act like he was gonna go refill his coffee, and like drops his coffee cup, pulls a knife out of his pocket, comes over there, sticks in my throat, and just goes to town. Like, is the whole left side of my body, because I like folded to the left on the couch because of how the room was set up. But so like my whole eye, my ribs, and my hip like was just a solid bruise. Like,
so he's hitting you with the knife in his hand, or what?
Well, he's got. I can't remember which hand it was, but one of the hands has a knife like to my throat. Now again, he told me later in years like the sharp side wasn't to your neck, and I was like, oh, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate you being thoughtful.
Right.
You were totally in control.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you were a ninja and that good with a blade, but thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, but anyways, he beat on me for a few minutes, and then my oldest cousin ran out, grabbed him, and like started like, hey, you know, stop, what are you hitting him for, blah, blah. So, of course, I told him who I stayed with. Well, he was like, so I think it was like lunchtime. He was like, you're calling into work today. I was like, I got to be at work in an hour. He was like, yeah, you're not going. I was like, well, I got to call him, because that was the whole thing, is I couldn't use the phone, right?
Yeah.
Never make sure we can't use the phone. Can't take phone calls, nothing. So I'm like, okay, cool. So can you dial the number and let me talk, or tell Aunt like let someone know that I can't come into work? Now, mind you, I look rough. Like, there's no way I was going to work to begin with. But so I don't know if they ever called or not. Couldn't really tell you. I sat at the kitchen table the rest of the day, of course, because that was the grounding. And then
and no acknowledgement that he just beat you. Like, no.
I think he said something about it in passing, like
I mean, that night.
Oh, no. Like, so I sat at the kitchen table all of Saturday, all of Sunday, Well, Monday was school day.
Yeah.
And I had done let like the vice principal know, like, hey, if I'm not here at school on Monday, like you need to send someone out to my house. Like
That's wise, yeah.
yeah, so like I'd already let them know.
So you're already in survival mode, like in your mind.
Well, you
like,
have to be,
yeah.
like, because again, like it's not like this is the first time something crazy's happened in this house where somebody got beat up over something stupid, like.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I tell them, I'm like, hey, so I go to school. So of course we got dropped off at Valley and then drove to Kerr in a bus. When I pulled up at Valley Junior High School, the kids on that bus were like, what happened to you? And I was like, I don't want to talk to any of y'all. Like, not here to talk to any of y'all.
Yeah.
So I walk into school, walk straight to the vice principal's office, and like, I don't know if there's like a CPS person or whatever that like chills at schools like once every week or something. I don't know, but so we go in there, we start taking pictures and ask me what happened. I had to give like a whole written statement. So like, whole one eye shut. I'm sitting there like, so, anyways, so CPS gets that case, and for the next, other than work and school, for the next 3 weeks, all I did was sit at a kitchen table, and like I would go outside and like walk around a little bit with my aunt and uncle. That's it.
So they let you go. The school system let you go back home.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Like it took 3.5 weeks, and literally the person that was on that case, she was 2 weeks away from retirement when she got my case. So she literally stayed 10 extra days at that. I guess,
work?
Yeah, to work specifically to finish her cases because she didn't know how long it would take if
Shout out to that woman.
Yeah, like she was the GOAT for real.
Yeah.
But so 3 weeks later on a Wednesday, there's like 5 cop cars roll up in my aunt and uncle's yard. And of course, doing what they do, they go to scattering, removing stuff, throwing things everywhere. And I'm chilling in the living room because I'm waiting on
Like,
this.
bruh.
This is like, bro, it's here, right? So
you already,
like, I'm just
you
like,
just get on the knees, like,
please come get me, bro. Like,
yeah.
so, of course, it's still like a heart-wrenching moment though, because like I'm emotional, because like I have to tell these people in front of my family that I want to go with them.
Yeah.
So, and at that moment, they could not tell me that they had a foster ready for me, right? So, like, I don't know where I'm going. I just know it's got to be better than this place.
Yep.
So thankfully, the Josh person I was talking about, his family actually fostered me. It was my best friend all throughout like grade school and stuff. Once I got with my aunt and uncle, or moved in with my aunt and uncle, so his whole family, or his mom and dad fostered me, and I stayed there until I graduated high school. But yeah, so shout out to them too, because they were like church every Sunday and Wednesday, didn't miss a beat, didn't miss a day. Grandpa was the preacher.
So walk us through that moment though when the cops come in. Like what did that scene? How did you finish that? Like when they came in and they take you.
So like what happens is like, so your personal belongings, if you live in a household, are your clothes, right? So you get to take your clothes. So they walk in, like they roll up with a warrant, right? Like they're not, like they're gonna knock on the door to just see if you'll let them in, but they're gonna come in either way.
Yeah.
So they come in, whole family's in the living room, of course, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're like in my mind, I'm pretty sure these people are here for me, hopefully. And
that's a tough moment, man. Just
yeah.
be sitting there like vulnerable. Like I hope that you're taking me out of this situation.
Yeah. So they walk in and like they don't do like searches or anything like that. They're not like looking for anything. They're there specifically for children. Like that when they show up, that's all that they're showing up for, from what, unless it's just, I mean, maybe there's like crack laying on the table or something,
Yeah.
but like they ain't really looking for anything. So they're like, do you want to come with us? We're here to get you if you do. And I was like, yeah, of course. I'm squalling. I'm like, yeah, I want out of here. And they're like, all right, go pack your clothes. Right. So like, I don't remember if the lady had a trash bag or if I got a trash bag from my aunt, but either way.
Are they taking your brothers as well?
No,
or?
just me. That was it. So yeah, that was the other thing too, is like, I think at that point they might have had an option to leave, but like they didn't.
Yeah.
and there was no way I could stay.
Yeah.
Like, I'd already seen it happen to my brother so many times. I'm just like, I'm out. Like, seeing my aunt get beat on, all that stuff. I'm out. Not doing this. It's not going to get better.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's like, there's potential. It's not going to happen though. So, anyway, so like I'm in my room squalling, throwing stuff in my bag, and like the police are like, you're not talking to them. Like, the whole family sitting in the room. You're like, you stay seated. Like, they're like legit. Like I said, like 5 or 6 police cars rolled up with that woman. So I get carried to Josh's house that night, and like, I don't remember much of that. I don't remember much of the ride, but like I remember the moment of leaving, like walking out of the door, like front door. Like, I remember that moment. But as far as like actually like how long it took, if there was questions, if there was whatever, like I don't remember any of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, but like I said, that family was a great family, but they they weren't rich people. It's just reality. So like, still had to work, had to, thankfully, well, it's gonna sound really weird, but so about 3 weeks after I got out of the house, Dad passed away. He overdosed, and about a week before that, he'd overdosed again before that. So I went to the hospital to see him, and I was like, hey, if you don't straighten up, you're going to end up killing yourself. You need to stop. But like, Dad was just, he had a demon that he couldn't shake. So he ended up overdosing. I don't even know if it was a full 7 days later, but yeah, he ended up dying 3 weeks later. And then 3 weeks after that, Mom called and was like, hey, son, I have incurable cancer, so I'm going to be gone. So like, Mom wasn't present a lot.
But you kept in contact?
Yeah.
Because you had worked on that relationship, right?
Yeah, well, Mom came to visit me when we were at my aunt and uncle, but it took like a couple of years for her to like, because the one thing I will say is my uncle would not let her come see us if she was doped up.
Yeah.
So once she...
Which is like the morality of your uncle. It's like
it's crazy,
the
dog.
Pendulum that it swings on.
It's
like,
crazy, yeah.
I'll kill people, but I'll take my nephew in. I'll beat on him with a knife, but I'm also going to protect him from his mom that's doped up. Like, it makes no sense, man. That's why we need Jesus.
Yeah, it's great.
So your dad passes away. Your mom calls, lets you know. Now, how often were you seeing your mom at that point?
So at that point, I hadn't seen my mom in a little while, but there was a lot of stuff going on with DHR and stuff during that, or CPS, whatever you want to call them. But there was a lot of stuff going on with that. Like, there was certain restraining orders were put in place, just, kind of as like a knee-jerk reaction. Yeah. So like, they didn't know who could talk to me, and like, of course, I called my mom after like a few days and talked to her, but I hadn't seen her at least since the move out, so 6 weeks probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, but me and Mom were really close. Like, me and Mom were like homies. Like, she knew all my first of everything, like first home run, first touchdown off a football field, like, what I was doing in high school, who I was hanging out with, was I going to parties or wasn't I, like all that stuff, which of course I never went to parties before I could drive, how was I gonna get there? But nah, but yeah, so it was kind of surreal, because like, the other thing is too, is like, what they don't tell you with like the whole CPS stuff is like, when you get removed from your family, you get removed from your family. Like, there is no communication. You're just...
So you go from talking to your brothers all the time,
every day,
seeing your aunt and uncle. And how many years had you lived with them?
From 8 to 15.
Yeah, so half your life.
Yeah.
And now it's 0.
Yeah. Well, like, the other thing is too, is I've been with my biological brother my whole life. Yeah. So there's no telling what kind of toll that took on him too. Like, because that's his story as well. I don't fully know it, but like, I'm sure that was stressful on him without me being in the home. Like,
he's been protecting his whole life.
Right. Yeah. So, it's one of those things. It's like a weird, it's almost a selfish moment, but a selfless moment simultaneously. Like, I had to get out. Like, I knew what was coming, but like,
well, a kid, honestly, I don't even know if a kid can be selfish for making a decision to protect himself. Like, you should have never had to make that decision.
Right. Yeah. That's fair.
Can't, you know what I mean? Like, so.
But then the rest of high school was pretty gravy. I mean, started, I had some anger issues, of course, and then I feel like that's a pretty natural reaction to, all your family disappearing, basically. But didn't get any real trouble. Started doing mixed martial arts. Started going to a gym, and that helped a lot with that. Because like when you're fighting people on the street, you think you're the baddest man in the room. Then you go to the room where all the really bad guys are, and it's like, well, that humbles you, you know.
The woman throws you in an arm bar.
Yeah, yeah,
like, please, dear God, let go of me.
There was actually one specific fella named Andy Fike. I will never forget. He was like 125, 130 pounds, and he was a wrestler from one of the local high schools, and he was a very good wrestler. And yeah, when I would get like a little out of control, Andy would come over there and remind me that this was not the place for that. Yeah, like, hey bud, you're not that important, like
you're not that guy, man.
Yeah, like, and like he was just, but Andy was a great dude. Yeah, have zero bad things to say about him from my time with him. But yeah, like that gym probably kept me out of a lot more trouble than I realize now. Like that was a godsend that I just didn't see then, of course. But went to church. Never really followed the rules. Had some moments where I felt, God's presence and stuff, but just kind of played it off as whatever, wasn't important. So went to drinking, like a moron, smoking cigarettes. Mom died with cancer, but let me jump on the train too, right?
So what point did your mom die in that? Like, so you graduate high school, then mom dies after high school?
No,
or
so mom died when I was I got beat by my uncle when I was 15. Dad died when I was 15. Mom died 6 months later.
Jeez,
so
dude.
At 16 was when mom died, and then I'm not gonna say that they're the wrong crowd because they're not, but I started hanging out with people and doing things that I was exposed to before, but had no interest, right? So then as we got in high school, like it was cool to smoke cigarettes, right? It was cool to drink, so like I was trying to be cool, right? Which you know how that goes, but anyways, so.
Also, just try to find community. I mean, if you're growing up in a house where you're not really loved, you're sitting at a kitchen table most of your time, and you're not really, thought about as valuable. If you can get around someone who wants you to be there, then you'll do whatever it is to scratch that itch of belonging. Probably. I mean, for me personally, that's what I would speak to. But
yeah, I mean, again, I don't really know how like my mind like comprehended it. Like it was just like, oh,
it felt good. It was cool.
Yeah, thing to do, man. Cig. Yeah, let me smoke a cigarette when I get upset and drink a beer when I've got nothing better to do, I guess. And
so your mom passes away, and as you like reflected on that, I guess in your early years, did you ever have any bitterness towards your mom by not giving you the life that everybody else had at school? For not being there, for letting you go to your aunt and uncles and not cleaning up so that she could be there for you?
Yeah, there was that, but like I never expected like to be similar to anyone else. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So like, I guess my biggest thing was always like, why weren't like, and the same question for my dad, even though I didn't really know him, was like, why were you not available to be my parent, right? Like, why would that happen? Like, what's wrong with you? Why could like, even still to this day, they're like not in a bad way, but it's still like, when I think about his death, like I don't miss him because I didn't know him.
Yeah.
And like, I think like, what would it be like to just know him? Like, because I heard he was a good man. He just had a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So like,
what would it be like to know someone that is half of who you are?
You're right. Yeah. Like, and like dad was like apparently dad was like one of the most giving people in the world. Like he'd give you anything except for, his drugs basically. Yeah. But yeah, like apparently he was a decent person. He just had, like I said, he had a demon he just could not shake. So, but yeah, it ended up Oxycontin and sleeping pills what got dad. But anyway, so we truck along through high school, and like first chance I get, the guy that I was under in the MMA gym, he was like, "Hey, I'm moving Coleman, work at this truck shop, work on 18-wheelers. I can talk to the boss there and see if he wants to hire you." And I was like, I'm so in.
You're 18, 19 at this point?
I was a month from graduating high school, or maybe it was 6 weeks, but I'm like, I'm so down. So, I went and talked to him. The guy was like, "What do you know?" And I was like, "Man, I know nothing. Lefty loosey,
I can open the toolbox."
I know exactly
fly.
what size wrench not to grab 6 times in a row. That's my special power. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, he hires me. They teach me a bunch of stuff, turn me into. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm like a diesel mechanic by no means, but like that's where like I've been working on cars with buddies in high school a little bit, but like working on an 18-wheeler knew nothing. So like the fact he was even willing to take me in, just opened a huge door, got me out of Jasper. Right.
You living by yourself at this point in Coleman, or
I was staying with a friend with the same nature.
Okay.
Yeah. So move up there. They moved during the time. Ended up moving in with what's now one of my best friends in the whole world, and his family. Chilled up there for like maybe 8 months, and then I couldn't get a raise, so I had to leave. Right. So I had to go find other work. So I went and worked in an offshore oil field for 5 years after that. But moved to Gulf Shores for a minute. Dislocated my shoulder at work, moved right back to Jasper, in with my aunt and uncle, which is a super, so.
Wow.
Yeah, the redemption arc, right? So I didn't speak to them for, oh man, I bet I was 20 when I spoke to them the first time. But, or maybe I think I spoke to them a couple times when I was like 17, 18, but then that was it.
So like 5 years, and y'all rekindled that relationship, or
somewhat, yeah. So like me and my uncle like had this big talk, and like so my uncle was older when I was 15, but now as like a grown man, like I wasn't scared of my uncle trying to whoop me anymore. Like the only way he was gonna beat me in a fight was to shoot me, and I knew that. So like I wasn't scared of him physically anymore, right? So because it's different when you're someone's kid, right? And like once you lose that like you're my father figure mentality over someone, it changes how you look at them as a whole person. Yeah. Like, so, I called him, I got hurt. I was like, hey, I'm about to move back to Jasper, get a place, cause like, I mean, I was still making pretty decent money. And they were like, well, why don't you just move in here? I was like, I feel like that's a horrible idea.
So the last time,
I don't know if y'all recall the last instance.
Appreciate the blade being not on my neck.
Right. Yeah.
Still significant.
Yeah. So of course I'm like super weary of it, but I ended up moving back in with him anyway. I can't really recall why, but so of course me and my uncle talked at length about everything that happened. He was super apologetic. My aunt. So funnily enough, my aunt stopped drinking the week that I got picked up by CPS. So like,
it's almost like a significant moment in their life.
Yeah. So like, it's like a redemption arc, right? And like my aunt still doesn't drink, which is awesome. Congratulations to her for 15 years of sobriety. That's great. But anyway, so, and like they didn't really treat me like a kid anymore. Like I didn't have curfews and crap. Like I came and went as I wanted to, and I worked offshore, so I was working all kinds of random, like leave for a week, come back for 2 days, go back out for a month, like. So I just did whatever in their house, but they were still doing all the crap they were doing before to make money. So like, I think I was like 23 or 24, and I was like, I feel like it's like it just hit me all of a sudden, because like that's what I'd always been accustomed to, right? Like it just didn't seem like a bad like thing. But me and a guy at work were talking about it, and I was like, I feel like I need to get out of here. Like he was like, yeah. Or no, I'm sorry, yeah, I was 24 because I got laid off and then came to work inshore. So funnily enough, a guy that I used to be close with in high school, we started working together in my mid-20s. So I moved in with him. And yeah, I would like looking back on it now, like I can't like I don't understand why I would ever move back in there, but like I just did. Yeah. Can't really say like a whole lot about it. It was just one of those things that just happened. I don't know. Can't really explain it, but yeah, I was there for like 3 or 4 years.
How's the relationship now? Pretty.
Oh yeah. Me, my uncle's passed, but yeah, my aunt, we're cool. Yeah. She's not the person she was, and that's huge. So.
Yep. So as we look at wrapping this thing up and heading that way, take us. I want to hear your story of how you come to the Lord, because most people who go through what you go through as a child. Usually you have like 2 responses. You become a very angry person, or you have like you become angry at your environment, or you inwardly believe that you really weren't enough, that you were the problem.
Right.
both of those lead you far away from God.
Yep.
Right? Because if you're angry at everybody, you could be angry at God. Or if you feel invaluable, then you don't feel as if, God loves you. Like, why would, he
Right.
didn't take care of you because of your brokenness. Yet you didn't seem to have those two responses. So what led you to, accepting Jesus as Lord and Savior of your life? And just talk us to that moment.
So I got saved when I was 27, and so I'm super glad that you gave me that question to think on before this whole thing, because that would have took me a minute. But so when I was younger, I blamed something, right? Like I blamed God basically for this happening, like, because until you understand what God is, right? Like it's easy to blame him for the bad things, because when you're living in a sin-filled environment, that's all that's going to come from it.
Yep.
So now, obviously, as an adult, I think differently. But then I did blame God for a lot of things. But as I got older, I tried to fill the holes with the things that are always what you fill holes with, right? Like when you don't know God, it's sin. So
women, drugs.
Yeah. Well, I didn't do drugs, but
stay away from that.
Yeah, no, I never
alcohol.
Did I did. Well, alcohol is a drug too. Yeah, alcohol, women, stupid stuff.
The prodigal life.
Yeah, the silly things, right?
Yep.
So at 27, I met my wife and started coming to church where I go to church at now, or where I serve church
where
at
you
now.
No, where you
Temple
work
Baptist.
at church.
Yeah,
where you
Temple
work now.
Baptist,
Your employment, baby.
So,
Let's go.
So I started going to church Temple, and I feel like a lot of people are called to the altar, or like feel like that's like that. They should be that moment. That's how you get saved. You fall down on your knees at the altar. That ain't what happened to me.
Yeah.
So I was listening to a preacher at 2:00 in the morning, driving home from night shift at work, and they started talking about the unforgivable sin, and I went to squalling my eyes out for about 5 hours, begging God, like, please don't send me to hell, right? Like, I'm so sorry for all the things I've done. Like, I know that I'm basically this giant mess up, right? Like, I'm all these things, and it gets, like I said, it was like 2:30 when I got home. I cried till like, I don't know, 5:30, 6. Maybe it was later than, anyways, whatever time. So I get like 2 hours of sleep. I only know one preacher. I only got one preacher's number. I worked with him at the time at the little machine shop I was working at. I call him like Tim. Bro, something's got to change. Something's happening. So me and him, he like talks me through the whole thing. He's like, do you accept Jesus Christ your Lord and Savior over your life? Do you want to build a relationship with him? Do you want to be, And I'm like, yes. Because my entire life I've seen what the absence of God looks like, in my opinion, right? Even though God was there, he wasn't in the people that I was around.
Yeah.
So I've already seen all this. I've already seen what bitterness and hatred and anger and what temptation leads to, right? So I'm like, hell is just going to be what I've already went through. Like, it's going to be worse.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a rendition of that, right? So we talked about it, and I went and took a shower, and like everything was still running crazy in my mind, and I'm it's like a whirlwind or it was for me. And then in that whirlwind there was a small still voice that said, I don't chastise things that aren't mine. And that was it. That was when my life changed completely, because I was like, I don't know what I got to do, but it ain't what I'm doing. So
yeah.
Completely changed. Instantly was like, I got to become a member of the church. I got to start volunteering, because I know myself, if I'm not diving into it, I'm going to fall out of it. So started serving in the children's ministry like less than a month later as a teacher.
Let's go.
Yeah, with like no experience whatsoever. And I'm just like, yo, we're going to make it work. So,
listen, I got a brain glitch and passion. Where can I go?
Yeah,
Kids.
I can do it all, bro. So
yeah, that's beautiful.
I start praying about all the lessons, start reading all the lessons, keep listening to preachers talk about stuff, and like basically that's
that's where you're at now.
Yeah, short road now, but yeah.
And that's what probably my favorite thing about what we've talked about so far is this. I've already experienced hell. I don't want any of that. And for many people that haven't experienced trauma or lived in a home where your parents don't follow the Lord, you don't understand that the Bible has a lot of commandments, and a lot of people look at it as God just wants me to be withheld from things. He just doesn't want me to have fun. He's telling me to do, and you don't even understand that there's a reason behind it. But the reason why God commands us to stay away from sin is that it leads to death.
Yeah.
In every aspect, death of relationship, death of your soul, death of your will to live, like everything, every sin, premarital sex, drunkenness, all these things that we're told to stay away from, when giving into it, leads to death.
Well, it leads to the absence of God, which is
no
exactly
love,
that.
no peace,
right.
no anxiety.
Because God's not going to be there. Like, he's still going to love you, but like, if he's not, he's a gentleman. He's going to knock on the door, and if you don't let him in, he ain't coming.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's super simple. Like,
and for the person that's really listening to this, like, explore the Bible for more than just a rule book. Find the heart of God, and you'll realize that the commandments that he gives us is not to keep us from, but to bring us to him, which is the fullness of joy and love and goodness. Because and I know if I were to ask you, like, what if you could describe your life in 5 adjectives now versus 5 adjectives then, they would be different adjectives.
Oh, 180 degrees. But yeah.
So, as we close this out, last question, because I think we're at an hour, at least an hour 10.
Okay.
Beautiful.
That's what I'm talking about.
To the Zach at 14 that doesn't have the role model, that doesn't have the Lord, that's in an abusive situation. Maybe it's the Zach at 20 that's had all these things that's happened to them, and they don't know what to do with it. If you would have had advice at 15 to 20, whenever you were making those decisions and trying to grow as a man without the influence, dealing with the trauma and everything that you went through, what is what you wish you would have known then?
I wish I would have known that the road that everybody else was taking was not going to help me at 14, right? Like 14, 15 years old, like the drinking and the smoking and the partying and the chasing women and all that stuff. Like, it looks great on the surface, but like, it's going to leave you more hollowed out than you were then. So that little bit of purity that you did have left, that I guess, for lack of a better, the virginity that you did have left of anything that you hadn't experienced yet is gone at that point, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's, alcohol or sex or whatever, right? Like, there's some things that God wants you to experience with one person for a reason. At no point does he want you to experience drunkenness. So that's what I wish I'd known. I wish I'd known that the reason the road is so well traveled at that age in that direction is because it's surface level fun, and that's what you look for as a teenager.
Yeah.
And as a 20-year-old, Zach, having to deal with things that happen, having to, living back in your childhood home where all those things happen, where a lot of it's resurface wounds and stuff like that. One, don't move back in the house with the people. Like, you can love them from like the neighborhood, right? But like, that was so stupid. But the other thing I wish that if I could tell anyone then was like, you don't need to involve yourself with anything other than church. Yeah. And like, I know that sounds like such a clown thing to say to some people, but like, even if you just read the rules of what the Bible has to say, and you are just a strong atheist, you can morally say that most of those rules you would be willing to follow because it makes you a good person overall. So like, the church is filled with people, and people are like me and you. We're going to have imperfections and flaws. So when you go to that church, when you go to that building, when you go to that congregation or whatever, you can't expect God from people, but expect God to be God, right? God's going to show up every time. And when you know that, once you start reading the book and you start understanding that these rules are in place, like you said, not to starve you of an experience, but to starve you of sin, so that God can use you in a way that makes sense and keep your purity in some way. Like, you have to understand that he's not making you miss out on moments. He's making you miss out on regrets. And like, it's a beautiful thing. Like, and I wish that I would have known that at 20 years old instead of going and wasting hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in bars and taking beach trips and remembering, a total of a third of the whole trip, like, it's just so, like, I know it sounds, I guess, what's the word where it almost sounds like surreal, but like it's the truth. Like, since I've been saved, I haven't had a drop in alcohol. I haven't dipped, haven't smoked, nothing. And like, God's not going to change you, or God's going to change you in the circumstance. He's not going to change the circumstance when it comes to sin.
Yeah.
So if you're surrounded by sin all the time, that's all you're a part of, especially in your early 20s. Of course, it's going to be easy to be like, well, God, why would this happen? Like, because
why do I keep getting fat?
Yeah.
Like as you have a honey bun in your hand.
Yeah, like,
you
literally.
can't expect life when you're dealing with
death.
With death, man.
Constantly.
And you can't find in creation what only the Creator can provide. And
I agree.
That's hope and life and peace and prosperity in the truest form, man. So, dude, thank you for telling your story.
Appreciate you, Caleb.
My bro, more than anything. Children Pastors Unite.